Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, to Kindred Spirits here on the RFK Refugees Podcast Network. Ted here, John here. Here we are doing our third, it feels like our third podcast in 2 days. So we're really cranking them out. John, how you doing, my friend? How are things? How have things been since I last spoke to you yesterday?
I don't know. Well, since we last spoke, I ate dinner, and
there you go.
I came downstairs. But yeah, no, for folks who didn't watch the live show on Monday night, and if you're listening to this, shame on you. You should be doing that. Although now, I don't know. It seems like we do. It seems like now we record the Kindred Spirits on Tuesday. But either way, I had a good weekend watching the Spirit live at Audi Field with 8,500 of my closest friends who got two free beers each in Spiritville. So that's cool. But yeah, no,
they didn't lose.
I had a weekend at the beach, and then I had a soccer game in front of me, so I can't complain at all. Ted, what about you?
I've been, honestly, not a whole lot, not a whole lot going on. Still split my time between Lynchburg and Richmond for the next couple weeks, so that's coming to a close here soon, and then I'm back to my normal studios with my incredibly fast internet. not that I'm looking forward to it or anything.
No, not at all.
That's why I have to. So let's just jump right into it. Let's start off with the Washington Spirit playing to a 0-0 draw against the Orlando Pride. They didn't lose, which is good because that's becoming kind of a thing.
Improvement.
They played well. I think their XG, they dominated the so-called XG with one goal. I believe one goal expected goals versus like 0.3. They played like it's so clear. This game was more evident, I think, than a lot of the other games. When you can play this well, and then the talent that's just missing, just that final ball, that cutting finish. I feel like this is like we can literally just repeat. We could just take the show, change the names, throw it in there, and that's throw it in the next week's podcast. I mean, the team actually, I thought, played probably their best game in my mind of this sort of non-national team players. I thought they played their best. But they just wasn't enough. They weren't able to find the finishing ball. They never really, I think there was maybe one or two chances. Really was never really a threatening chance. Their finishing was kind of off all night. I really don't know what else to say. It's just been this game hurt because I think it's sort of sealed, and they could prove me wrong. They could absolutely prove me wrong, but seal the fate for me that this season's going to have an early conclusion, and then you just kind of got to, rebound for next year at this point. I don't know if you feel the same, but this kind of seemed to seal it for me that this season may be trending on done and finished. There's just not a lot of room for them to make up.
No, they've got to be pretty perfect. I have never seen in person a more direct advertisement for international window NWSL than this game. It was the lineups were indicative of the fact that there's a major tournament going on somewhere else in the world, and other international. The Euros are going on. The W Championship was going on. The way the game went, very indicative to that. So just to share, we already talked about the XG, and I think the stats kind of do tell the story here. The Spirit had 17 shots and 0 big chances. So it really was not a matter of threatening goal. They had one ball hit the crossbar. They had 2 chances that should have been high percentage chances, and they were not able to convert. But it was just the story of the whole game, really. They were unable to get into dangerous positions. They had no one to finish the balls that were created. They had almost 60% of possession. 5 shots on target. It just didn't really matter. It didn't really matter what they did. They were not able to get the final touch, which is what been the story for them pretty much the entire break. They had 35 minutes in the previous game they played at Segra, which was against Kansas City. They had probably a run of more dangerous attacking than they did in this game, but defensively they were better here. Orlando was not a threat. You could tell when they got there they weren't going to be a threat, and that was accurate. There were a few times where
there were a couple of chances they had. There were a couple chances they had. I think I remember they were definitely susceptible on the break. I felt like for the Spirit.
Correct.
And there was at least one opportunity I think that actually I thought was offside, and I believe whoever the sort of sort of a microcosm of the game. I believe the Orlando player just kind of played it very much, did not get it anywhere near goal. Really should have done better with that. So you talk about being a sort of, if I'm trying to think of who's some of like the international players that are still left on the Orlando platter there, but if a higher quality player is out there running to make that finish, that ball ends up in the back of the net, and it's 1-0 Pride. So
it was.
I think the Spirit were lucky. I think they were lucky in a lot of ways to escape that game.
Darian Jenkins was a challenge, and late in the game, Abigail Kim was a challenge. Their speed, and that's honestly what the Spirit were able to do too. Late in the game, they made a bunch of subs, and the quality picked up a little bit. It was tired legs. It was hot and muggy the whole game. They did their best to push through it, but I'm trying to think of players I want to spotlight. Amber Brooks was something. That was her best game as a Spirit player, and it's not close. She got into many scraps. There were fouls all over the place, but she also was sort of integral in neutralizing Darian Jenkins. I asked Devin Kerr and Tara McKeown about the physical nature of the game, and here's what they had to say about it.
Yeah, for both of you. You lost track of how many times there was a stoppage for collisions, or were you expecting that level of a physical game going into it? Obviously, talk about your game plan, but that was a physical game. Rugby was here yesterday. It was kind of similar.
It's the same game. Yeah, I feel like every time we play Orlando, like out of all the teams, it always is a really, really physical game. It gets gritty. I think, there was no harm in any of it. It was just emotions again were high, and it was really exciting. But yeah, there was a ton of stuff. When she said how many minutes were left in stoppage time, I was kind of shook. But
so yeah, they saw it too. They were evident that this was the game that was unfolding in front of them. But Amber Brooks was a real part of what was able to keep them a clean sheet. Devin Kerr got her first clean sheet as a player. That now means that the media staff at the Spirit can stop calculating clean halves, which is apparently an ESPN stat. I couldn't believe that. I see it on the game notes every week. I'm like, are they keeping that? Is that real? Halves? But yes, apparently it is real, and they do keep it. But now she's got an actual clean sheet to her name, so we're happy about that. Anna Halferty was pretty good. Anna Halferty probably again had one of her better games. There was no one to be on the end of her crosses, unfortunately. But Sam Staub, another great game. She has been. The defense has been questionable, I think, this whole season. So it's not like they were as cohesive as they were last year. In the middle of the first half, when all of those counters you were talking about were occurring, Chris sent one of his assistants up to the perch to watch the game from a higher vantage point so they could see what's going on. And he mentioned that the center backs were too close together, and they were supposed to by positioning draw their attacking players out wide so that they would be left to cross it, and our center backs would clear out the things, but that wasn't happening. So they were able to make that adjustment at halftime. So that was kind of a neat peek behind the curtain. But again, this is sort of was the must-win. We said you got to beat Kansas City, you got to beat Orlando. They did neither of those things. They got 1 point from 6. I think it's very likely that this is the end of the story for 2022. But from this game's perspective, I asked Chris a question last game after the Kansas City game, after Tanaya Alexander grabbed the ball after the penalty and missed, but she grabbed it, and he applauded sort of that a player taking that risk into their own hands and saying, I'm gonna do this. Let's see how it goes. I'm confident. And he said our team is missing that. And then this game, in the last 5 minutes of the game, 2 chances, balls being squared right across in the 18. Both Tara McKeown and Audrey Harding had chances to score and couldn't do it, and we're just looking to pass instead of make the shot. It's unfortunate. Tara, I think Tara's legs were tired, but I asked Chris about this and if that was something that he emphasized going from the Kansas City game to this game, and this is what he said.
I think for Audrey, it was, we talked about it. I think it was the last time we played Orlando, actually, where she had that half chance early on in the game and she missed wide. And I think she was maybe a little gun shy since then. And so it's been, hey, no, this is your opportunity. I think Tara was just fatigued at the end of the day. I've never seen Tara pass up a chance to shoot. And so I think she just didn't have it in her legs, and that's why we had to get her off and change her. But yeah, she's never met a shot she didn't like, so to speak. So that was definitely a new one. But again, for her trying to get back to 90, and with how just awful the conditions were, maybe could have dragged her off a little bit sooner.
And she was close.
So yeah, I mean, he said it right there. This is when Ashley Hatch comes back, hopefully next game. We'll talk about that in a second. He's going to have his first choice forward pairing for the first time since the first game of the season. And that tells you all you need to know about how banged up this team's been, or just, the way this 22 has gone. It's been tough. We don't have to tell you that, listener.
Yeah, it's certainly been tough. I also want to say I thought Bogalski also, I thought she had a strong game in this game. She was definitely moving up that flank very well, and it's good to see her getting back to form after suffering the injury that she suffered to start the season. So that's been good to see her get back. What do you think of Bailey Feist? That's another sort of main piece of this whole secondary piece. Anything you can glean from watching her live? I thought she was pretty good. I thought the whole midfield did a good job of kind of controlling the game. It's just they could not find a way to get it into the attack and actually finish it. And really, Tara Mikion was the only true out and out striker on that team.
Yep.
It was a lot of midfield, and Orlando were playing the same way. They were playing a very much a defensive type formation as well. So
yeah,
I'm curious what you thought of Bailey Feist.
I've been waiting for her to have a breakout game this season, and it's not come at all. I think that she may need the internationals around her to give her some more space. I just think that she had a rough game. She wasn't really able to create anything. Orlando was, I think, pretty okay with how the game ended out from a score perspective and just sort of the way they set up. But it was kind of tough to watch because anything that was positive that was created, there wasn't someone there to take it all the way and to put it in the net. So, but I didn't think she had a very good game. I'm hoping maybe that when everybody comes back, her and Ashley Sanchez can really turn things around, get some assists, get some goals, or this is just going to be her year of recovery post surgery, and then she comes back in 23 with a chip on her shoulder. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. And I'm trying to look. I decided I was going to try to look and see, I guess looking ahead, unless there's anything else you want to talk about this game, as far as the rest of the game, any other things you noticed. It was a tough game, I think, just overall. And just trying to look too, I was just curious what the Spirit. So I look what the Spirit's overall, chances, so to speak. Now there are, of course, 2 more teams this season. Last year, to get to the playoffs, you needed 33 points. 33 points got you into the playoffs. Right now, they are sitting at 10 points.
Not good.
I think I saw 10 matches left. I believe is that how much they have left? I think I counted that correctly. So let me just count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Sorry, 9 matches left. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So they have 9 matches left. They will play the rest of those games out. I feel. I think we talk about it. So that's a maximum of 27 points if my math doesn't fail me correctly. So that would put them at 37 points, which is sort of just at that playoff line. They have to essentially run the table, I think, to make the playoffs. And even then you have to put in a little bit of buffer to make the playoffs. So a win, I think, would have definitely helped them there. And I think it's going to be rough goings, and it's really weird. It's really weird to say considering how talented we know this team as.
So I found a betting probability site for that, and right now
you did.
Right now they're 12% chance to make the playoffs. which is not super great. not something you'd want to set any of your. This is. I don't know if this is current. Maybe it is. What's the record now? Are they 1-6-3?
They are 1-7-5.
Okay, so this is old, but I don't think it got better. So it's probably lower than that.
No, it's I think that for me just kind of was like, well, I keep thinking, once they get the players back, they're gonna be fine. But I mean, they just have not been able to put together a victory in this stretch.
Here we go.
And
I got 538 says 7% make the playoffs, 4% make semis, 2% make final, less than 1% chance to win the final.
make the playoffs, anything can happen.
Yeah, 7%.
I think at this point, what you want on this team, you want your stars back. You want your Ashley Sanchez. You want your Trinity Rodman. All the players that you've been missing, you want them to come back. You want this team to go on some sort of run. You can't have them, finishing bottom of the table, next to bottom of the table. And you just hope you can put together, something that at least gets you back into at least into the conversation heading in late, where maybe you need to put together a late run. I think it's one step at a time. I think they're probably taking the mentality that DC United's talked about, which is every game's a final at this point.
I think
they go on the road.
Yeah, I think interesting too. They have North Carolina as 40% chance to make the playoffs, and they're sitting on 8 points to Washington
because they have 9 games. Because they have many games.
They have plenty of games to play, but you got to play them. You got to win them. So that's always interesting. Anyway, yeah, I mean it's tough. It's a tough year. Continues to be a tough year. They are going to have a 12-day break now, and then come back. And theoretically, Ashley Hatch, who returned from the national team with a leg injury, and Julie Rotter, they're both spotted out before the game in a knee brace, and now I think I just saw Julie Rotter's on a beach somewhere in a knee brace. So they should both be back. They're soft tissue injuries. Chris said it was very possible that they'd be available against North Carolina. Talk about a must-win game, though. That would be great.
Yeah,
getting 3 points from North Carolina with those games in hand, is essential for them to keep some distance between them and the bottom.
Yeah, and by the way, did you hear they had a game canceled, North Carolina, due to COVID protocols? I don't know if you heard about this. Their last game got canceled. They apparently, some of the players violated certain COVID protocols for said game, and they got hit with a fine and still get to replay the match.
Oh.
Which is, which again, is the NWSL just like deciding that this is just like, we're just going to punk the Spirit the entire... That's what it feels like, honestly. We get to the second, and then the second part of that is the fact that Jaden Shaw has been announced that she will be staying with the San Diego Wave, despite the fact that she had trained with the Spirit for weeks on end, despite the fact that she apparently didn't want to go to the Spirit. The San Diego decided they wanted the rumor is they wanted $250,000 in allocation money for Jaden Shaw, and the Spirit just either didn't have the funds or couldn't make it up. So, great work in WSL, awesome sauce.
She wanted to stay. From what I've heard, she and her mom wanted. They've been practicing with the Spirit for a long time. They were staying locally. They wanted this to happen, but they're clearly next year. I think they're going to spend some time figuring out a more fair system for this, because this is not it. Not that MLS is any better with its discovery lists and all that malarkey. I think that there's a good way to do it, and neither of the American leagues have figured it out yet. So maybe next year, hopefully. But the question now is, they were anticipating having her, signing her, paying her money. That was a roster spot. That was salary on the salary cap. Does that mean that they're now going to go out and fill that spot with another player who is making would made that much money? I hope so. I hope they're still looking at that. Even in a season where everything is lost, I still think you should focus on improving the roster. I don't think there's any downside in doing that. So hopefully they're able to do that in the summer window.
Yep, and I think Emily Grid has asked the question: Do you think the Spirit will make any new signings before the end of the season? Will
Krikorian work his magic?
Which is magic, the new GM. So let's start. She's got a couple questions going on here. So let's start with the first one. I hope they do. I'm not sure. Again, we don't know the salary cap is like an absolute mystery. It's opaque in MLS. It's like trying to like make out figures through a stained glass door. But you can kind of get a good sense of like, how much money DC United has, where they're looking at with, international slots. We have none of that information. None of that information from them in NWSL. We have no clue how much roster space they have. I'm not expecting any game changer. I think Jaden Shaw would have been sort of the game changer, because Jaden Shaw would have probably still been relatively inexpensive and still might have fit under that cap. They could also be holding, maybe they had the $250,000 in allocation, but they're like, we still have other players that we need to sign, or we need to look for something. Who knows? So that might have been their calculus on that. I think they will. The question's going to be, I think if they won a couple more games and you think playoffs are a possibility, you're also looking at potentially another expansion draft next year.
Yep.
No. Because Utah's coming back, right? So I think it's just one team, right? I couldn't remember the exact numbers on that, but so you're looking at another expansion draft. So you're looking at potentially losing another player. Now, again, the team hasn't been great, but I would say it wouldn't take a manager long to get to no fault of their own. So I think you'll see some signings. I'm not expecting world changing type of signings. Maybe just some more depth pieces. Really looking ahead to next season, especially as we get sort of ready for the last third of the season. And how much longer do you give Chris Ward to right the ship? I'm not anticipating anything. John, what are your thoughts on this? Do you think his seat is hot at all, or do you think it's still just?
I've heard this now from multiple people. I've heard it from fans. I've heard it from people around the team. I've heard it from other media folks saying, I don't know, Chris Ward's got to be getting worried about his job potentially. I just do not see any coach in the universe that could have taken this set of variables, which is a congested a long preseason, a tournament, a high-speed tournament, a congested beginning of your part of your season, losing 7 of your players, all of your starters, for a month in the middle of the season, and then still being expected to do well. Could they be doing better than this? Maybe. They maybe could. I think that there are points lost from winning positions. So even just there in those 2 games where they took wins and turned them to draws or losses, that makes a difference, particularly because how tight the table is now. I would say that he has at least next year, the whole year, before we're talking about that. You don't have the run that he had before this on accident, when he had all of his players at his disposal. So that's what I'd say. And also, as a correction too, there are no expansion drafts for 2023. The earliest they would enter is 2024, and Utah Royals would be one of those. No one is set, but there is a bunch of teams that are. The Bay Area is another one. Austin's another one. So we'll see there. So, but I think that to your point, a world beater is probably not what they did sign here. I think improving your depth, finding a little bit better options, I think is what they probably should do. Hopefully, the challenge there is when you have a roster. I mean, you've seen this in MLS all the time, right? It's a top-heavy roster. They have the NWSL's highest-paid player, and they have other players who have gotten raises in the recent years. When you get down to the bottom of that roster, you got a bunch of players on the minimum. So it's hard to find that depth that when they step up, you have a high level of confidence that they're going to be able to do the job. Some of them have. Some of them haven't, and that's kind of the way it goes, particularly when you have a roster built this way.
And I would argue, I mean, I think the real struggle has been, I look at some of these games where they've lost 1-0, where they've eked out a 1-1 draw. I mean, I think those are games, if you have 3 of your top starting forwards that are out of your game. Those players make up a huge number of goals and assists. I understand, the defensively they've had but the defensive moments have almost been lapses more than anything. They haven't been like they're getting dominated in this game. So in my mind, I mean, maybe his seat is warm. I don't think you fire or you let go of a championship coach coming off a championship, with all those variables. Maybe they suffer a little bit of a championship hangover. If let's assume, they don't have the crazy schedule. Let's assume, they don't have the international break. By the way, I mean, we're looking at we're looking at for next season, obviously the Women's World Cup. So we're looking at potentially a similar situation with a bunch of players being missing.
But they'll shut down for a month probably, like they did last time. I would hope.
You would hope, but they might still play some games. But yeah, the NWSL really. I mean, what's sort of crazy to me, and I understand then we have a situation where we're going to have basically the same thing. It really kind of does baffle me a little bit that they really do not play that many games in a season. Like we're looking at, I think 22 games in a regular season. I mean, that's not a lot of games. You can't find a way to like break this out a little bit. I think the Challenge Cup needs a revamp, needs some sort of change. I mean, honestly, my idea is to hold it, in February as a preseason tournament, run it in Orlando or in Miami or someplace that is far away. And I know the logistical parts of it would probably not be ideal, but just make it the teams like preseason. Like just make it like their preseason camp. And that's going to be their preseason. You have the money, you have the matches and everything, and just do it that route. Not have this craziness that forces teams. And they will have, of course, I think there's going to be a little bit more of a spread out, I think, between the amount of games and then the before the World Cup actually starts. Obviously, so I think that's going to kind of help things a little bit. So it's hopefully I'm hopeful for some better scheduling, and hopefully maybe if there's still bad scheduling, the Spirit are not the team that's caught up in this.
I was just about to say,
strange.
Somebody else gets to be in the barrel next year, no matter what. It's not us.
Yeah. It's interesting. You look at a team like the San Diego Wave, and even Angel City's been struggling a little bit. You look at some of these teams that are struggling, and you see the teams near the bottom are the ones I think that have a lot of international players that they're missing. That's not a good thing. I mean, you don't want that type of competitive balance kicking. Otherwise, or what they need to do is they need to say, if you get players that are called up, we give you allocation money, we give you assistance to go out and find players, like significant assistance, to bulk up your roster. I mean, maybe that should be the reward. How MLS does it for teams that win. They give them extra allocation money so they can compete in Champions League. If you win trophies and you have international players that are called up, maybe you base it off the last sort of international break, how many players get called up. And that dictates like how much money you get. And, that's how much you can sort of sign to sort of boost your roster. I don't know if it would be a fair, people probably say it wouldn't be a fair system, but neither is this. So
nope.
I don't know what you do at this point.
Yeah, I imagine there will be changes in some way, but like you said, as long as it's not us next year that are getting mostly hosed, that would be nice.
What do you think? Like, you think next year Chris Ward is gonna like it? It's so funny too because they just like in the Challenge Cup they like barely made it in, like they barely made it to that semifinal. Then they got to host it, and then it's like, I mean, this really. I think that's why he stays is because you saw in that Challenge Cup how that team grew, and they were firing. Yep. I mean, towards the end of that group, they were firing on all cylinders. So
we need the Challenge Cup commemorative DVD. I think is what we need for this season.
Absolutely.
That's all that's good.
Yeah. All right. Anything else you want to drop before we say goodbye?
No, I think we may be taking next week off, just like the players. They are all neither Ted nor I are headed to the tropics or St. Bart's or anything cool. We'll just be where we normally are, but may take a break and hoping to get some interviews with some players next week, the week after. Get back to doing that. I know that our listeners have enjoyed that in the past, so I'll keep everyone posted as we get those lined up and get your questions in on those. And if we don't see you, then everyone just hopefully, enjoy a NWSL break and watch the copious other amounts of soccer that you can watch.
I think by then we'll probably have like other European leagues will be getting started up. So a lot of those starting early now, very early, preparing for the.
I think
World Cup
August. I think August is when the British EPL or the Women's Super League in England to start.
Yep. All right, folks. Thank you all so much for watching. We will catch you guys down the road. Bye.
Bye.